We are starting our second briefing for today in Media Center Ukraine, Odesa. And now we are going to discuss how Georgian volunteers help Ukrainian migrants, military personnel, and refugees in Georgia. Good afternoon. My name is Lilia Grychulevych. I'm the representative of the Women's Council of Georgia in Odesa and represent a range of the charitable foundation of Ukraine and Georgia. And today, with my colleague, we want to tell you about the work that our Georgian friends do to support not only Ukrainian refugees, but those staying in Ukraine. Today I have with me Geno Tebidze, founder and chairman of the Alilo 2015 charitable foundation, which is an opinion leader in Algeria. This is the Autonomous Republic of Georgia. And Geno has been supporting Ukraine quite powerfully since 2014, and today he represents a huge amount of Georgians who understand that now Ukraine fights not only for its independence, but also for independence of Georgia. I would like to briefly tell you about the work of Alilo 2015 Charitable Foundation, chaired by Geno Tebidze. When it comes to Ukraine, we used to have different types of cultural and patriotic events, but now, of course, we are focused on humanitarian aid. There are a lot of projects that have been implemented to support Ukrainian military personnel. So that used to be the representatives of ATO forces, and Alilo 2015 Charitable Foundation accommodated the military of Ukraine and supported their families. And also we have one more social project, Children Want Peace, and the project was founded in 2017. And since that time, we have had a lot of exchanges of children. Ukrainian children were rehabilitated in Georgia, but there were also cultural changes, including different type of entertaining events. And children learned how to cook hinkali, hachapuri. They learned Georgian language, and they visited a lot of historical landmarks in Georgia. They also learned how to sing and Georgian songs and dance Georgian dances. And before the full-scale war, Ukraine also welcomed here Georgian children of the Georgian military in Zakarpattia, in Odesa, in Lviv, etc. And we hope that after the war we will be able to continue such exchanges. And now I would like to tell you a bit more about the activity of Alilo 2015. And for this, I would like to give floor to Geno Tebidze, who has come to Ukraine for a quite short period of time, but he has had already numerous meetings with the military personnel and with volunteers here. I would like to welcome everyone. I'm Geno Tebidze from Batumi, Georgia. I would like to start from explaining why am I here today. And I would like to say that for me, Ukraine is the second homeland. Today in Georgia, everyone understands that the front line is physically in Ukraine, but this is our common war. This is also the Georgian war. And we understand that now our independence, our freedom, and our development depends on what is going on in Ukraine, and everything will be decided here. This is a very sensitive issue for us. And I would like also to say that before that, in the 1990s, when we several times fought Russian aggressors, and somehow this was called Abkhazia as Abkhazia, Ossetia, and Georgia war, but that actually was the war of Georgia, of Russia against Georgia, and we were supported by our Ukrainian friends, and we remember this quite well. And I would like to also recall 2008, when the hugest support was provided by Ukraine, including artillery, pilots, who saved several thousand lives, and I mean around 10,000 or 20,000 people who were rescued thanks to heroism of Ukrainian people. When in 2014 started the first Russia's aggression against Ukraine, we wanted to do a lot to support Ukraine, and together with our Ukrainian friends, we founded this project, which we call Children Want Peace. And we started inviting the children of Ukrainian military and those people who suffered from war to be rehabilitated in Georgia. Apart from this, we also welcomed the families of Ukrainian military who fought in that war. This is about our past. But now I would like to say that this is the biggest aggression that no one saw in the 21st century. And that full-scale aggression started on the 24th of February. And we saw the signs of that aggression. And we expected this aggression from Russia, and our government warned our people, and we actually expected more clear messages from our government supporting Ukraine, because that was really very important for us. That's why there were numerous rallies in Georgia before that. But now, on the 24th of February, the whole world saw what happened. And on the 26th of February, we opened the first humanitarian center in Batumi, Georgia. Now we have 2 representative offices. And back then, we were very emotional, and there were a lot of different types of such centers, but then, unfortunately, most of them were closed. But there is one center that is still operative. And this is the 10th month of our activities in Batumi. When we were opening the office, we just thought about collecting some aid to send to Ukraine. But when we started accepting refugees from Ukraine in our Batumi, we realized that our task was not only to collect some medicine and food products to send to Ukraine, but also to support Ukrainian refugees. We now speak about accommodation, healthcare, education, jobs, legal advice, the aid with the documents, etc. So there is a whole range of issues that people can address with our center with. So they can rely on our support. And we still are work in this area. In our Batumi office, our volunteers are very active. We also provide winter camouflage. We have already 500 square meters and are going to send 900 square meters more for Ukrainian military. And I would also like to note that we have a great team working with us. We have also our partners, which is called the Maidan of Europe. Most participants of this center of this entity very active for around 10 months, and they continue go on rallies in Batumi. And we can say that our office is the central when it comes to the support Georgia provides to Ukraine. Every day in our Batumi office, we welcome Ukrainian citizens. And if you have any questions, I can provide more details about this support. I just would like to say that we have already 18 newborns, so the Ukrainian children that were born in Batumi. We understand that there were a lot of pregnant mothers among the refugees coming from Ukraine. And we provided the needed health care to them, and they were able to give birth to their children in our maternity hospitals. These services are very expensive in our country. We have subsidies for our nationals, but from the foreigners is quite expensive. You know that we also help Ukraine with our military. And you know that our government does not support this service. But we understand that these people serve now in Ukraine, not only for Ukraine, but for our country, for Georgia. Every person that is fighting Russia's aggression now protects his or her own country. And this is an act of patriotism. That's why we support the Georgians fighting in Ukraine. We have bought 2 vehicles, 2 jeeps, and we are going to buy more, and we also support them with uniform, with drones, etc. And we believe that this is one of the biggest support that we can provide. We have to support these people fighting in Ukraine. I would like to clarify now this. Are you now speaking about the Georgian people fighting in Ukraine now? Yes. And yes, we have a lot of volunteers from Georgia now. And we also have the volunteers from Belarus. But a lot of Georgian volunteers are fighting in Ukraine now and have been fighting in Ukraine since 2014. Yes, when I speak about this support, I mean supporting these people. And one of Georgians is the Cyborg, and he's the hero of Ukraine. He's like an ideal person. And he is also the Georgian legionnaire. And we have, yes, the Didgori battalion. They're great guys that have significant military experience. So these are people who do a lot and will do a lot in Ukraine till the end of the war. And they fight together with their Ukrainian friends. They fight the Russia's aggression, and together we will celebrate our common victory. I have several questions. You've mentioned that you support Ukrainians in Batumi, and I would have several questions. The first one, as far as I know, a lot of Ukrainians from the occupied territories, including Mariupol, fled to Russia, or they were forced to flee to Russia. And then they moved to Georgia because they could get using their internal passports through the consulate. Have you had a lot of such Ukrainians that addressed your service at the center? And the second question is that Georgia have become one of the major country where Russian males fled to avoid service in the Russian army. Have they addressed you? Yes, we have people coming from the occupied territories: Mariupol, Melitopol, Kherson, Donetsk, Luhansk, and were the territories closed by Russia, and they couldn't get to Ukrainian territory, so they had to go through filtration camps in Russia, and they told us a lot. And actually, they said that they were treated as animals because Russian are animals, and they do not understand how to treat properly other people. So there were a lot of humiliation. But the most of these people then got to Georgia from Russia. And we had some other cases when people came to us from Europe. So they first traveled to Europe, but then moved to Georgia. But there are not so many people. And those, we actually thought that there were a lot of Russians fleeing to Georgia. But we didn't have a lot of places for these people, and we wanted our government to hear us. And there were a lot of rallies asking our government to close the border for Russian citizens. Yes, there are people still who are from the occupied territories, from the Donetsk and Luhansk People's republics, but we could not identify them among other Russians because we are just a volunteer organization. When people have Ukrainian passports, when people with Ukrainian passports address us, we treat them as Ukrainian passports, but we cannot identify their intentions. Those people use their internal Ukrainian passports to get to Georgia to address to our center. And I would like to say that the Georgian Customs Service treats Ukrainians very well. And I have seen that with my own eyes. I would also like to address now the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry. Those people, many people are now stuck in Georgia. They cannot leave Georgia, and Georgia is not that rich country. And I really want those Ukrainians to adapt to Georgian life, for them to be able to find jobs there. Some of the issues are solved by our government or solved by people on the spot. But we have such cases like, for example, a young mother with a child, with a baby. She can find job, but she has no one to take care about her baby while she's in work. So there are some possibilities like kindergartens, but the Ukrainian refugees do not have enough money for this. And I would like to ask the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry to provide possibility to the Ukrainian people to get passports, for them to be able to live in a different country. For them to be able to stay in Georgia legally, or to come back to Ukraine, or to move further to the European countries. So these people address us, and they have a lot of requests in this field. But this is the major problem. They need passports. That's why I'm telling about this now, because I have to do this, because I see this every day, and I need to share this with you. Do we have any questions from the floor? Do you understand English? If not, you can use the headsets.
Please.
Please, what do you expect for next year? More refugees or less refugees? And why? And the second question would be a hypothetical one. What would happen to Georgia if Russia wins in Ukraine?
Не повезло.
Хорошо, давайте я переведу. Первый вопрос. Чего вы ожидаете в...
So the first question, what about the number of refugees? And the second question, what will happen with Georgia if Russia wins here in Ukraine? What is the first question? The first question is about your expectations during the next year with regard to the number of refugees from Ukraine. The first flow from Ukraine that was accepted by Georgia, that was in the beginning of March this year. And that was the biggest flow, because it seemed a never-ending process. And now I think that the situation has been stabilized. And sometimes we have the refugees from Ukraine, but the number is far less than in March, April, and May this year. I don't expect the increased number of refugees the next year. This is my personal opinion, so there are no signs of this. As for the second question, this is the easiest, the simplest one. We hope and we believe that Ukraine will win the war, because if Ukraine loses, not only Georgia, but the whole Europe will also lose. Are there any other questions? Don't forget to introduce yourself. Dima Nalmatov, RFI. The Georgia is quite a small country, and a lot of Ukrainians have already moved there, as well as Russians who are trying to escape from the so-called partial mobilizations. Are there any conflicts in Georgia between these people? There are some incidents, some small conflicts, but there are not many of them. This is not like a major process. The most important thing is who is supported by the local population, and the local population supports Ukrainians a lot. But if the situation had been different, like if the population had supported Russians, then the situation would have been worse. But we have some cases with some insolent people who want to say something in the shop, but this is not a major conflict. Do we have any other questions? No. Then thank you very much. I would like to thank Mr. Tebidze. If our journalists have some more questions, they will be able to talk to you after the briefing. I would like to remind that in half an hour at noon, we will have the briefing of Ukrainian volunteers who will tell about how they support military and the IDPs from the occupied territories, as well as the civilians from the Odesa Oblast. Thank you very much.